Hey everyone, this is Lucas Acosta. Welcome to the Foojee Show, episode number 14. By far the best episode yet because I'm super thankful. We get to hang out with Jeremy Cowart today. Jeremy, thanks for having us in your studio.
Yeah.
So I'm back in Nashville, and when I met Jeremy a few months ago, man, you were telling me about your workflow of how you're creating your art these days, and I was actually surprised by how iPad-centric it has become. I just assumed as a well-known photographer, artist, humanitarian. Did I miss anything? Any other title?
I don't know. Hotel developer, I guess. Yeah.
Right.
Hotelier.
Which, if you haven't checked out the Purpose Hotel, you've got to. We might touch on that a little bit later. So after having that conversation, I just thought, wow, for nerds like me and our audience, I'd love to just hear more about what you're using today in your workflow, much of that on the iPad as well. But before we dive in, let's rewind a second, because before we were filming, you were telling me about a story of what you had to do for some of your art before the iPad came out, with another tablet that you had been using for years. So what did you use before the iPad?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm both an analog and a digital artist. So I love paper, I love canvas, but I love getting those things as quickly as I can into my computer to continue working. And so there's always been this divide. And so, you know, for years I've used the Wacom Tablet, the big Cintiq 24 HD monitor, which is an amazing tool because it really is like a desk and a drawing tablet, but it's so big I can't just like throw that in my car, drive home, and pull it back out. I mean, it's huge, you know. And so
it sounds like you've had to do that before, though.
Yeah, I mean, I did a project in Uganda, over in Africa, where we literally carried this massive box. I mean, this big of a box. Took two people to carry it through the bush, to the middle of nowhere, so that these kids could work with it, you know. And so imagine us setting this monitor down out and literally in just like 6-foot grass, you know, plugged into MacBook Pro, and then you'd have to find a generator or a battery. I mean, it was crazy. And then you're like hauling this big monitor around on these buses, you know, in the middle of the bush, and it's bouncing all over the place. And so to think that was only a couple of years ago that we did that project.
Yeah.
And the reason we did that is because I wanted the kids to be able to draw on the monitor and to screen record their artwork and their process, because we were doing art therapy with them. But all that to say that to now have this, you know, this little bitty iPad, which has, you know, with the Apple Pencil, the tools are now here to do right here what we were doing just a couple years ago with this massive box. You know, I'm like, man, had we only had this guy, that would have made life so much better.
Just a little bit easier.
Yeah.
Good night. And so it's interesting. Fast forwarding, you know, from that story, you just did a project with the iPad, with in Gatlinburg, with the recent fires over there. Tell us about how you were involved with this project and how you use your iPad also.
Yeah, it was, you know, Gatlinburg had some wildfires kind of take over the city. I mean, it destroyed over 2,000 homes and businesses. 14 people died. And Gatlinburg is a place that I've been visiting my entire life with my family. So it's just an amazing little town to visit. And so anyway, I wanted to help. I wanted to do something. And I had the random idea to photograph people lying on mattresses in their old, burned, you know, their destroyed homes. I just thought what an interesting visual contrast that would be. And I hoped it would be a bit therapeutic for the people. But in order to photograph it, I had to get really high. The only way to do that would be with drones. And so I brought in a crew, and we used the Inspire 1 Pro that you have to operate it with two iPads. So I'd have one guy flying the drone with his iPad, operating the flying, and then I had my own iPad, and I was operating all the camera settings, like ISO, white balance, shutter speed, aperture, you know, all the things I would normally operate from my iPad. Yeah, it was so fun.
Incredible.
It was so fun.
It's so cool to see that you embrace these tools, like you said, the digital tools, and you're not necessarily stuck to one medium. I think we've seen your art evolve like you said, just from 2 years ago from what it was. A lot of people know you. And how I got introduced to you was through your photography. But it's just exciting to see you kind of take on these new mediums. So why don't we just dive into some of your workflow, get a little nerdy, talk about, like real nerd stuff, like what you use to back up and where you import your photos to, and stuff like that.
Cool.
So a lot of your work these days is combining some artwork with brushes with your photography. Where once you've taken the shot with the camera, just show us a little bit about where you're putting it on your Mac. What app are you using, and then we'll kind of go through your workflow.
Yeah, I mean, it obviously all depends on a lot of things, but in general, for my photo shoots, the first thing they do is sometimes if I'm on location, they go on an external G Technology hard drive. I love this thing because it's weatherproof and super, you can drop it and beat it up and all that. And then as soon as I get back to my office, I will copy everything from my portable G Tech drives to my beast here. This is a 64 terabyte G Tech Studio XL, so it's insane. So everything goes on here, and then I have another backup of this guy at my house, so everything's in multiple locations. And then, but I manage everything in Lightroom, Adobe Lightroom, and so this is where I do a lot, not all of the editing, but a lot of the editing is done in Lightroom. If it's not done in Lightroom, it's done in a program called Capture One Pro. And then I typically export all my finals, my masters, to Dropbox. And so for the cloud, I use Dropbox. For my artwork, I kind of am using iCloud Drive a lot. And then for some Adobe stuff, I'll use their Adobe Creative Cloud. So, but for the most part, the bulk of my photography work is on Dropbox because it's just so easy, even on the go, to be able to email a client. Here's a whole folder of your files, So
it's ready to share. So this particular one, you created in Procreate, right? And then you actually have a printout of this.
Yeah, so it's crazy because, Procreate on the iPad allows you to create a very large resolutions. Pretty dang large, 8,000 to 10,000 pixels. And so to be able to do that and then to print it, this is 20 by 20 inches at 300 DPI. I mean, that's pretty crazy. And even at this print size, like, the quality is there. The quality that I'm looking for, and I'm pretty anal about resolution, things looking like I want them to look. It's just crazy that you can go from here to there. And then in addition to that, I have a huge projector in the studio that's like 20 feet wide. I can cover the entire wall. And so I'll also project my iPad work onto a wall and use as a backdrop for people that I photograph.
And that's the same piece that you just showed us.
Yeah, it's the same
right?
piece
Just
right
projected
here,
out. But
projected at about 20 feet. So from projecting at 20 feet to printing at 20 inches down to, just a few inches, it's so fun. I mean, it just literally changes the game for me. And I mean, iPad's been around for a long time, but to be at a place now where we're getting, with the Apple Pencil, getting the textures and the feels that I want is like, I mean, it's truly, I'm not just saying this to promote Apple, but I've been telling people, like, this is the tool that for so long I feel like I've been missing. Like, I've just needed this to be able to fly on an airplane, to be able to sit on the couch at home with my kids, and to be able to create high resolution art that I'm proud of and that I can work with is literally an artist's dream come true. It's awesome.
So pivoting a little bit from this workflow, you were talking about the Gatlinburg project out in your studio. Show us what those photos ended up looking like, because you captured these again from a drone, but you were using the iPad for the camera.
Yeah, the iPad was both flying the drone. One iPad was flying the drone, one iPad was operating the camera. So, and I'll never forget, in fact, this photo, the one we're looking at, the first time I saw this image on the iPad, I literally cried. And I've been a photographer now for a decade, and I've never cried, teared up seeing the back of the screen. But I did in that moment, not only because it was so powerful, this guy laying in his former home, but just when you have a vision, like I had randomly had this idea in church, and to have the idea to see this mattress in this old destroyed home, and then to fly a drone up, 300 feet above this guy's property, and then to see that image. I push the button on the iPad to take the picture after I've dialed in my ISO, my white balance, my shutter speed, my aperture, and you operate it really like a normal camera. And that was our first shot we did in the project too. So this was literally the beginning of the whole thing. And I just got really emotional, kind of blown away.
What is it about Procreate that you like?
So with Procreate, I love the brushes. I mean, I love the different looks I can get. Because I don't know, I've just never, and then to be able to draw and use these brushes, be able to change the size, I mean, I can get looks and textures that I would never have been able to get otherwise. And black here. I mean, it's just a blast. I could literally sit here all day and do nothing else and just draw on my iPad and be perfectly content. My style's a bit weird and abstract, but that's I mean, this is how I've drawn and created since junior high school. I mean, I've only drawn abstract since I was a little kid. So I just love it. And now with, the smart keyboard, I can Command Z all of those things I just did, and
let your old Mac habits
exactly
still shine.
Yeah, and zoom in and see all the textures. It's so fun, and to be able to do this now on planes when I travel and fly, and just sit here and draw stuff and open up different pieces I've made. I mean, I'm like a kid in a candy store. Like this is literally my dream. Then to be able to export this and print it big, and even I even love taking photos of my kids and making art out of their faces and their photos. I want to be doing a lot more of that actually. And also, of course, my kids definitely love playing on this thing and drawing it. It's super fun for the kids. Oh, and then I can, also love it because this mimics Photoshop, where, I can have all my layers and I can choose the different layer overlay options, from lighten to contrast to difference. I mean, these are all things I do in Photoshop. So it's a beast. I mean, this is definitely the tool that's been missing for me for a long time. There's no doubt.
What excites you about like the future of this tool? To kind of think, 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road.
Yeah, well, I think I'm excited for it to have even more power behind the processor. Because, of course, being an artist, I want even larger, even bigger, even more, I want to be able to print bigger. And so I'm excited about that idea. And I knew they'll get there in no time. But right now I can create pretty large and print pretty large from these files. So I'm still very, very pleased.
Man, that was great. Just to see some of your tools that you're using for this art that we all get to see, on your Instagram and things like that. So before we wrap up, like what are you working on these days? What projects are you involved with?
Yeah, I'm continuing to shoot. I'm speaking a lot. I continue to run Help Portrait. Continue to run our iPhone app, OkDoThis. But the biggest thing I'm embarking on is building a hotel chain called the Purpose Hotel, and so that'll be this year's focus and probably the rest of my life's focus actually. Wow. And so we're ramping up towards that, and I'm always going to be a creator. I'm always going to be an artist. In fact, I hope to lead kind of the hotel long term through my projects and through my art. I'm never going to just be a guy running a hotel. That's not the idea. Sure. The idea is for me to keep being a creator, and so I just have a lot of ideas, and that's one that has to be born. So.
And if you guys haven't seen the Purpose Hotel, thepurposehotel.com, right? There's a video there. You can just see what this vision is about. Just an awesome, crossroads of commerce, but also I think doing something good for the world. So thank you for just casting that vision with that really cool project. And thanks again for just having us out.
Oh, of course.
And how can people follow you even more? Your Instagram?
I'm just at Jeremy Cowart on all the social channels.
All right.
JeremyCowart.com.
Cool. Awesome. We'll see you guys next time. Hey, thanks for watching. If you find value in these episodes, be sure to subscribe so you'll get notified every time a new one